season of Chat Me Up has been so much about inspirational struggles and journeys of my guests, which is why I love doing what I do, to be able to be inspired by these stories and bring them to my listeners. Today on the podcast with me is one such superwoman, best-selling author, multiple award-winning, with one of her books touted to be made into a major Bollywood movie, a speaker, a journalist, a feminist, but most importantly, a fighter, Meghna Pant. Thank you so much for joining me today, Meghna, on the podcast.
Thank you, Tauhee. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm actually overjoyed to have you here and to be able to bring your best-selling book, Boys Don't Cry, on the podcast. You know, a book that has been now, lapped up by Bollywood to be made into a major Bollywood movie. How does that feel, to reel in the success?
It's amazing. Tauhee, I wrote something about, which was a private story. It actually was a tale of what I went through. I was in an abusive marriage. And it took me 8 years. I've written so many books, so many articles, so many stories over the last decade that I've been a published writer. But this was the only time it was a deeply personal tale that I wrote. And I thought that something like, it's such a heavy topic, something like abuse in a marriage is something that nobody wants to really talk about. But the reception to the book was astounding. I mean, it was launched at the Jaipur Lit Fest in India to, a packed audience at the front lawn. It was picked up literally on day 2 of publication. I still remember, by a big production company in India. And now we're working on the screenplay currently. And it's got amazing reviews. And even I remember every time I've spoken about it at any event, people are actually applauding. And especially young people, they love understanding, I think, the deep underbelly of modern relationships. And they don't shy away, don't try to brush issues under the carpet, as the boomers tended to do. So I think it's really, people are yearning for these stories. They are looking to talk about this. And I think it was just a sort of release for many people to have a story like this come out to the forefront.
Mm-hmm. Which is so true, Meghna, because just to go back a little bit, you were talking about this marriage that you were in, before which you were working with NDTV. You were a very well-known journalist. You were writing your own articles. It was not like, you were a very timid, naive person getting into a wedding, right? So that is, I think, one of the reasons why your story, why Boys Don't Cry, is so fascinating. Because ideally, when we think about people in, being in a loveless or an emotionally traumatizing marriage, you would think they are very naive, they are probably less informed, or, not aware. But someone like you, who is, well-traveled, highly educated, and coming from such an affluential family, to have gone through this is what, makes it remarkable. So, but what do you think, have kept you, what kept you in this marriage for so long?
I think, the one thing that people need to understand about domestic violence is that, it affects 1 in 3 women, especially in India, and also around the world, by the way. 200 million women in India alone. Can you imagine? And these are just reported figures. So, I mean, the actual figures must be astounding. And domestic violence and abuse, by the way, covers not just physical violence, but also emotional, financial, sexual. It includes all of that. The entire gamut is in there. And I think the one lesson or takeaway that I, really want, especially women to, and even men, by the way, even men can be victims of domestic abuse. Of course, the scale is much lower, right? And men don't tend to get killed in, intimate partner relationships, even if they are in abusive situations. But women do. Women can end up, getting killed or getting hospitalized and all of that, which doesn't typically tend to happen to men in the same situation. So we need to understand this. And the one thing I keep telling people is that it doesn't matter what your education is, how modern you are, how independent you are, how influential you are, your socioeconomic status. You can come from a penthouse in Malabar Hill, which is the most posh area in India, or live in a chawl, in, say, Bhatinda, and that will not save you from domestic violence. So please be cognizant that this is not what determines abusive marriages. What determines is, or, abusive relationships. It can be from a father to a daughter. It can be from, your own sibling, your own spouse, your boyfriend. It can come even from your own teacher. So, it's nothing will save you except yourself. So just be cognizant of that, be aware of that, and let no one tell you that just because, Germaine Greer, the very famous feminist, had once told me this at the Jaipur Lit Fest, in fact, that, Indian women tend to be shamies in public and, biggie billies in private. They're very timid in their personal life, but when
Yeah.
they're outside, they're, sort of
Did you think that applied to
more.
you?
I think in some sense it did. I was never like really a Shani. I think I became a Shani later on once I sort of found my voice really. But
So,
I
but
think
let me just
women
go
have,
back. Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
when you were getting married, of course, like you were your own
yeah,
person, you were an individual person working independent
yeah,
and all of that, like we were saying. But
yeah.
how did your marriage silence you for those good 5 to 7 years? How long were you married in that marriage?
I was married for 5 years, and
Okay.
here's the thing. This is you're gonna laugh at this. I didn't recognize that I was being abused because I'd been gaslit to such an extent that my abuser and his parents convinced me that I was imagining things, that I was exaggerating things, that I was being melodramatic, I was being hypersensitive. Any way to pull down a woman. They even said things like, "Tum to writer ho, you must be making stuff up," to things that had
Oh,
just happened. So I'd
yeah.
been gaslit to, and they said, "Ki, it's not abuse unless you end up in the hospital or you end up murdered." So the first time I was hit, I didn't talk about it. In fact, I ended up like an idiot going ahead with the marriage. It happened 3 weeks before our wedding, and I still went ahead and got married to the guy because he was so apologetic after the first time he did it. He wept and he didn't eat for 2 days. He punished
Oh,
himself. He kept crying. So he played on all my emotions. Where I ended up after 2 days feeling like the perpetrator and he was a victim.
oh my
So
God.
they know how to
Yeah.
play. They know how to manipulate you extremely well,
Manipulation,
and because they
exactly.
have the manipulation is high, and everything by the way has been pre-decided, predetermined. So you're literally like a animal caught in a cage. You don't know how you got into that cage, and you also don't know how to escape or get out of that cage. That's what abuse looks like. And I genuinely, I kept thinking I'm going insane. I thought I'd lost my mind because I'm like, how can this be untrue when I just experienced it? Or how am I really exaggerating things? Am I really being dramatic? Am I really that sensitive a person? And they stripped me away of all my confidence. He would gang up with his parents and sometimes his brother. They would gang up together, and I'm isolated. I'm in a foreign country living with them. I'd left India for him, and they would
You
all sit
left your
down together
thriving
and
career and all of it for
my
this.
thriving career, my friends, my family. I left everybody for that guy to move to New York that time, and then later on Dubai. um, and they would all gang up and tell me things like, you're not a good wife, you're not a good person, you're a terrible person, and
So
you're,
didn't you have your own
all kind.
circle
Yeah,
and another, like, your separate circle beyond your
I had,
husband and
I had,
family?
I have, I've always had a lot of friends. In fact, even in New York, I have like 3, 4 of my best friends, my college friends, who were a huge support system. When I did leave him for a bit, we separated. I left him after a couple of years when I saw the behavior not changing.
So
So I
this has
stayed
been
with them, in fact.
ongoing before the wedding, in between, and then
Oh, yeah, yeah,
somehow
yeah.
just got back together.
So, people keep saying, why did someone like you put up with it? And what
Yeah,
they don't
yeah,
understand that
that
leaving.
surprises me from a third person perspective. When I see
Yeah,
someone like you go through that and not having
yeah,
been able to recognize that this is happening to you.
yeah,
So
yeah,
versus the other people that, like I said initially, like, we
yeah,
would assume, okay, they're naive, they're well, like, lesser informed, they're not aware of the
yeah,
world of the marriage, or probably not even have that kind of support system if they left the marriage. But,
yeah.
you don't tick any of these boxes,
No.
which is why it is even
Yeah,
more surprising, if someone like you
yeah.
can fall prey to this, what about the others?
Anybody can, yeah.
Yeah.
And the one thing you have to remember first is nothing like, I keep telling people this in all situations, even during Me Too. There's nothing like a perfect victim. We keep
Hmm.
thinking that women who are abused must be these abla naris, Sati Savitris, these
Yeah.
quiet, timid women.
Yeah.
But I've heard of some of, because when I finally wrote about my abuse in 2015 for Femina, a
Okay.
leading women's magazine here.
Yes.
That's the first time I spoke of it, and it took me very long to be able to write that article. I got calls from an actress, a theater actress, who said her theater husband, famous guy, threw her out of a moving car. Then a dancer messaged me on Facebook. I remember she said, "My boyfriend beat me up so badly that my spine cracked and I can't dance anymore." And there were instances like this flowing in from all over the country for literally almost, I think, 3, 4 weeks. And nothing, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what strata you belong to, what you're doing with your life, how emancipated or powerful or modern you think you are, or you think another woman is. um, Abuse is not a one-off incident. It's
Hmm.
something that the person has first emotionally also manipulated you into, cornered you into stripping away your confidence, that you lose faith in yourself and therefore buy into their narrative of, you know um, love ke liye kuch bhi karega, right? That in the name of love, you forsake all your dignity, all your respect, because you hang on. What are we, right? We're sent down to this human experience because the centerpiece of our life is love. And we all are we're hanging on for every relationship, every moment in our life is built on that concept of love. We're all seekers of love, right? We'll do anything in the name of love, especially romantic love, because that's what our society, our movies, our textbooks, everything has taught us, that women especially must seek that one romantic love in marriage. So for that institution, you therefore forsake everything else. And I was literally the example of that I'd put up with anything to make my marriage work. So that was very interesting.
I saw that in a couple of interviews. You said you were under the pressure of the society to perform as well. Like, especially in the case of, like, even after being ahead before your wedding, you went ahead with the wedding because there was so much of pressure because it was a big fat Indian wedding.
Yeah.
Right. But if you look at it, like, even after getting married, like, after all that you've been through, you try to put up with it to be not an abla nari, to be the perfect wife.
Yeah.
And yet,
and also, the two things I'll say first, women should not be told that tolerating pain is a sign of strength. I've been raised by very strong women. My Nani ji was, I think, one of the strongest people I knew. She became a widow at the age of 35 with 5 dependent young kids. And she was illiterate. Like, it's not like she was, she didn't have a job. It's not like she had a career. And from that little money she got from her brother-in-law, she would hustle and send her kids to the best schools in Shimla and, all of that. And my mother, in turn, is one of the smartest, strongest women I know. She retired as the chief commissioner of income tax from Mumbai.
Wow.
Yeah. So for me, I have always been a strong person, and to reconcile to me being so weak, and I almost felt like a coward throughout that. I'm standing up for everybody else. I've stood up for everything else, but I'm not being able to stand up for myself.
Why do
So,
you think that
keep
was?
telling women, show up for yourself. This is the one lesson I tell every woman, that in the name of sacrifice, we're constantly abiding to, our parents, to society, to our neighbors, to pandering to everybody else's needs and wants except our own. So stop doing that in the name of love, in the name of marriage. And by the way, divorce, I hated that word. I never thought in my life I'll get divorced, but I'm like, I'm a good person. I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. Let's take away that taboo. It's not a big deal. By the way, in Bombay now it's happening, nobody even blinks an eye. But at that time, 10 years ago, it was a little bit of a taboo. So I would still tell women, it still is a little bit of a taboo in India. Don't, life is too short. It's too unpredictable. Be happy. So if divorce seems like the best solution to you, don't hold yourself back after you've given everything you can to a marriage.
Yeah, because you tried your bit with leaving him in between and then coming back into the marriage as well.
Yeah, all the emotional strings were played at. At the heart of it, I think it's just that the second point I wanted to make, which actually ties into that question, is, women are not rehabilitation centers for men.
Yeah, that's
And
how
we
a lot
should
of your
remember
opening
that.
statements are.
Yeah, we should keep that in mind because, you're not meant to change someone. You're not meant to make someone a better man. That's not your responsibility. That should be your responsibility if you have a son, but not when you have a husband or a boyfriend.
Yeah.
So if the boy has been badly brought up, it's not your fault. It's not your duty. And I have 2 very cute, very young daughters now. And the one lesson I'll tell them is always marry the good guy. Especially when you're young, you want the bad guy. It's very exciting. It's very thrilling.
It's
We've
very
all been there,
charming.
right? It's very charming. You were like, I'll change him. I'll make him a better man.
Yeah,
But that's
this
not
is
your
the
job.
narrative that's been fed into us, right? We see the bad guy in the movies who's essentially the good guy inside, but he's been brought up in a lower way, and then we want to be, the girls have to be the the angels in their lives, bringing out the better person.
Yeah. Like even Kabir Singh, the movie, sort of propagated this concept of the bad guy and how the girl will transform him, but she ended up suffering for that, So is it really worth it? I mean, there are good guys out there. So, be smart. I mean, why are you doing that to yourself?
Why
Why
go through all the
yourself?
hassle of
Why
fixing
do
someone
all
else's
that?
mistake?
And love is supposed to be easy. It's supposed to uplift you. It's supposed to elevate you. I'm married to a wonderful guy now for 6 years. And I have 2 beautiful girls with him. And I've had a very, very bad marriage, and I touch wood now have a very, very good marriage. So I always say, don't torture yourself in the name of love. If love is seeming very difficult, if the journey is too tough, that means it's not the right relationship for you. So learn to we keep teaching people how to fall in love, but we should also talk about how to fall out of love with dignity, with grace, with respect, and with your sense of self intact.
Mm-hmm. And your self-respect, like, because like you were saying, in that marriage, you tend to lose it all.
Yeah, yeah,
But, you
yeah,
were like, you were writing the book, One and a Half Wife, while you were in that marriage.
yeah,
And that is very
yeah,
ironic because I think the character, because what I understand, the character in that story is of a strong woman who walks out of a marriage and builds a life of her own.
yeah, yeah. I wrote it actually to, all writing is, it was inspired by my actual life, but I was still married to him, so I didn't write about what was actually taking place, but just a modified version of it. So I think, gathering my own strength to leave the marriage through Amara, who was my protagonist. Then she leaves a guy. He's not abusive. It's
It's
a
a loveless
loveless
marriage.
marriage.
Yeah.
And, that's the one thing that's very difficult to explain. Whenever in India, especially when somebody asks you, ki, aapki shaadi kyun tooti? They'll
Hmm.
ask you, why did your marriage break? So they'll ask you, did he cheat on you? Did he hit you? You know, is he a womanizer? Is he an alcoholic? They'll ask you all these questions. But there are many marriages that have fallen apart because there's no love there. And society doesn't accept that or doesn't relate to that. So she was in a loveless marriage and she just didn't know how to explain it to somebody. So,
Hmm.
that was Amara's journey. And by the way, my older daughter is named Amara. So when I was writing the book, I said, if I ever have a daughter, this was more than 10 years ago now. I
Hmm.
said, I'll name her Amara, and I did.
So would you say at that point in time when you were writing that book, because after all that you've been through, you were still staying in that marriage because you must have sensed some form of love, was it?
So what abusers tend to do is that they build up this fantasy world for you where they tell you that they love you so much that they are the ones who will change you, who will reform you because you're not a good person. And because you're not a good person, you deserve to get beaten up, you deserve to be undermined, you deserve to be humiliated. And they are the ones who will show you the true path to love. So that whole notion of romantic love, that when you're with me, you'll become the person that you're meant to be, or you'll become a good wife, you'll become a good whatever person, a good woman. um that's a pattern that abusers typically tend to have, that they say that they're doing it for your good, that you deserve it, you ask for it, right? That's what I guess rape victims also face many times. I mean, you've seen in India today hostels telling girls not to venture out after 10 p.m.
Hmm.
So that they can avoid getting raped. And I think every woman in India has spent her entire life trying not to get molested, trying not to get harassed or raped or
And it's still
stalked.
ongoing.
It's still ongoing. It's not changed at all on the ground level.
Yeah.
And it's getting
If
worse,
anything,
in
it's
fact,
just
I
get
feel.
gotten worse.
Yeah, it's definitely getting worse. So it's the same thing with abuse. They tell you that you deserved it, you asked for it, and if you put up with it, you'll become a better person, or you'll get something in the end that you want. Like with Darlings,
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
he took that
Yeah.
carrot that I'll have a baby with you. So whenever she
Mm.
tried to leave him, he'll dangle that carrot in front of her. So it's the same thing. They know exactly. They've studied you very carefully, and they know exactly what carrot to dangle to make you stay
Yeah.
on in the relationship.
So I think Darlings is a story that resonates with a lot of people at this point in time because,
Yeah.
the kind of abuse versus the love the next day that comes along, it kind of confuses the
Yeah,
young mentality
it
today.
confuses you.
Yeah.
But the Gen Z and millennials are not like that at all.
Yeah, I
They're
don't think they
very
take it anymore.
vociferous. Yeah, yeah. They don't put up with any no, and they shouldn't. Why should you?
Yeah, yeah. And of
Life is
course,
meant to be celebrated,
yeah. So,
not
so
suffered.
what was the snapping point that you decided, halas, I cannot put up with this
Yeah,
anymore? Because, probably there have been
yeah,
instances which is why you left and came back,
yeah. There
like
were
you,
so many incidents. Like once he locked me up in the kitchen. I was supposed to meet my best friend who had flown down from Singapore to meet me. I couldn't call her home because I was in Dubai that time staying with my in-laws, and they wouldn't allow my friends. Like my brother came down for a show in Dubai. They forced him to stay in a hotel. They would not allow anybody close to me to stay in their house, even though they had space. They had rooms, empty rooms. Their relatives were allowed,
so
mine
didn't
weren't.
didn't your brother or
Yeah,
your parents get
nobody.
a whiff
So
of what was happening?
my entire 5 years of marriage, neither my brother nor my parents were allowed into my marital home.
No,
Not
but not being
one
allowed,
night did they
wouldn't you be
stay.
able to
Yeah.
speak to them and let them know because like I said, you have a very
Um.
influential family. Your brother is Saurabh Pant. Everybody knows him for
Yeah.
being a
Yeah.
very popular stand-up comedian in India,
Yeah.
and he's very vocal about everything. So
Yeah.
these are the things that plays in anybody's minds, like knowing you from where you are.
Yeah. So I didn't tell anyone about, like, I got married to the guy, and I hid the fact that he had hit me in 3 weeks before the wedding from everyone. because I knew that's once I say that, there's no coming back, because
Yeah.
that's a
Then he's a
fall
bad
from
guy.
grace that you can never recover from. Then he's a
Yeah.
bad guy. Then no matter what he does, and I was not ready to leave the marriage. Then I said, if I tell somebody about it, I know exactly what they're going to tell me to do. They'll tell me to leave him for my own safety, for my own life. And I wasn't ready to do that. So it was a process. I keep telling people, a wedding is an event, but the marriage is a process. And
Mhm.
leaving an abusive situation is also, it doesn't happen overnight. It builds up. It's again a process. It's not an event. So there were
Mhm.
many, many, many microaggressions, several even macroaggressions. But the camel, I think that broke my back was that when my 1.5 wife that you just mentioned, it was being launched in Dubai, and phenomenal launch. Like the press was there. I was working with the media that time there
Wow.
anyway. The press was there. It was a sold out. Like a lot of attendees. It was sold out, and he had by that time, and nobody knew what was happening in my personal life. He had thrown me out of his parents' house and taken me to some random hotel room, saying we need space to talk. And he had taken away the house keys and all of that, so I couldn't enter back in. And little bit personal thing, but got my periods that night after the
Mhm.
event.
Mhm.
And I told him that the chemist shops are not open at this time. It was like, must have been 11 or whatever. I don't know what time in the
Mhm.
night anymore, but it was late at night. So can we go to your parents' house and pick up my sanitary napkins? Something as simple as that, because my cupboard is there, right? And my
Mhm.
clothes are all lying there. Um, First he refused. Then finally he said, okay. And he drove me to his parents' house, which was 5 minutes away. And his parents were in the US at that time with his older brother, staying with his older brother. They
So
got
the
the
house was empty
location.
for you to speak anyway.
Oh yeah, the house was empty. These were all ruses, like to get me physically out of that space. It was all very manipulated. Everything was very sort of, and all gang. They'd all it was all in cahoots with his parents. And when we reached his parents' house, they had locked their door, and he took me to our room and he started counting down. He said, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to find the pads. And he started following me from the bathroom to the. I couldn't find the pads anywhere for some reason. So he would follow me around. Every drawer I'm opening, every cupboard door I'm opening, when I'm going to the bathroom, when I'm going to the living room to see if my things have been moved. He followed me for
Imagine,
five
and
minutes
this
while
is
counting
after
down.
having had your time in the limelight of being the celebrity of
Yeah.
the night. You being
Can you
stalked down
imagine?
by this.
And with a countdown of 5, and then I couldn't find my sanitary napkins in those 5 minutes, I started crying. This guy is standing on, he's a tall guy, he's standing next to me, counting down, tick, tick, one, tick, tick, whatever, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. And I'm standing there, bleeding, unable to grasp what is happening to me. That why would somebody treat you in such an inhumane way? What have I done to you? I've given you everything that I possibly could have. I've poured everything that I had inside me to grace your life with love and laughter and happiness. And despite being the best wife I could ever be, you're treating me like I'm, worse than you treat your, not even an enemy or an animal, just worse than you treat a monster. So, I just broke down at that time. And when I didn't get my pad. Then when I was going back to the hotel room, I took some tissues from the bathroom. What do I do, right? And I just came out of the bathroom and I looked at him and he was lying down on the bed and I told him, this is the last night I'm spending with you. That's it. All your other stuff I've been overlooking, but there's going to be no end to this. So, only when I was totally humiliated.
And that's the
I
lowest
mean,
it can get.
it can't get lower than that. I mean, what kind of person would do that to someone else? I think that was it. I was just like, no, you don't. And I forget, you don't deserve me. I don't deserve this. And I mean, why would you treat somebody like this? In the name of, again, love.
And then was he okay with that?
He thought I was bluffing because I told him many times before that I would leave him, that I'm going to get a divorce. And every time I'd come back, or every time I'd be unable to do it, or he'd play on my emotions to make me change my mind. But this time I was resolute. For the first time, I said, you know what, enough. Enough is enough. There's just no end in sight.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it breaks,
Yeah.
it breaks me to know that, you were just a star of
Yeah.
the event. And over here, you're hounded like,
The contrast.
yeah, look at
Yeah.
the complete
Yeah.
dichotomy there. It's shocking, right? But, and,
Yeah.
to also know that while in the marriage, you were, living vicariously through your character, Amara, and, who
Yeah.
finally breaks free from that marriage. And, and at the end of
Yeah.
this book, after it was released, that's exactly what you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But going back
Literally.
to
Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to
Poetic
Boys Don't Cry,
justice.
poetic justice, true. So, but going back to your book, Boys Don't Cry, that has a different closure altogether. You said it's an autobiography, but albeit a little
Yeah.
fictionalized, of course. So, what?
So the fictionalized version, I mean, if you read the book, the first chapter only says it, I kill the guy
Yeah.
in the end, right? And he deserves
I
it.
like
And
how you
once you read
say
the
it.
book,
I killed the guy in the end. But there's
I
nothing
was
hidden there.
getting very vicarious, cheap thrills, if I can call them that. When I was pregnant with my second child, and my husband would keep coming up to me. He's like, "Are you sure you really want to be writing this book at this time?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I have
All these
to do it
emotions are at
because."
play.
Yeah, you're already hormonal, and you're like, okay, I think there's a lot of angst inside, so this is actually the best time to write the book. And I said, after I started writing the book, I got so angry for my former self that why was I putting up with this for 5 years?
Yeah.
Nobody would put up with this even for 5 weeks. So I was so angry on behalf of my younger self. I wanted to protect her,
Mm-hmm.
that my redemption was to kill off the guy, and it's right up top the book. And there's also a twist in the end, and I think that twist and the killing of the guy really, that closure, that redemption, that retribution that women don't get in their daily lives. I
Mm-hmm.
think it throws that into sharp relief, that you have some kind of divine intervention where God is like, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
this
Yeah.
guy asked for it, he deserves it, and this
You
is
know,
his karma.
a big breath of like you're exhaling out all your fury,
Yeah,
through this book.
yeah,
So did it
exactly.
give
It
you
was
the
very
final closure?
therapeutic. It did. It was very therapeutic. I've been able to talk about it. When I launched it in Bombay, I got a little emotional and I got
Mhm.
teary eyed. But honestly, beyond that, I've been able to talk about it without feeling emotional. I still feel like it happened to someone else. I think of that girl sometimes as, how there's I think a movie or book about writing letters to your younger self. It feels almost like that now.
Oh, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
almost like, it happened because I think that's just how we human, like we
Mm.
people are, we humans are.
Yeah.
At some subconscious level, no matter what is happening,
Yeah.
you don't want to believe that's happening to you. Because at
To
the
you.
core of it,
Yeah.
that is not who you are. Like you were saying, you knew
Yeah.
you were not up, like you were not cut out for this. You were a strong,
Yeah.
independent woman. And when this
Yeah.
probably would have been happening to you at that point in time, you must have had a hard
Yeah.
time coming, to
Mm.
terms with it because this is not something
Yeah.
that should be happening to someone as smart
No
and powerful
one.
as you are.
Yeah. So
Anyone
there's
for
a
that matter,
person.
but in this
Yeah.
context.
In this I tell everybody now, always fight for the love that you deserve. So I was giving a lot of love in that marriage and getting nothing back, in fact getting the hate back for absolutely
A
no reason
twisted
again.
form
And
of love in his head or whatever.
yeah, whatever that weird definition of love that person had. And I feel like don't settle for that. I have so much touch with love in my life now that stay the hope, basically.
Hmm.
Keep hopeful. And if, like I said, love is not meant to be difficult, it is easy. You just have to be with the right person. So find that right person for yourself who can live with your craziness, your eccentricities. And my husband loves me so much right now. Sometimes I just wake up and I'm like, what have I done to deserve it? I don't deserve
Mashallah.
this much love.
Yeah.
And that's, like, there's so much in marriage. You're married, you know what it's like,
Hmm.
forgiveness. Like, we are all making mistakes, we're all fundamentally flawed
People.
human beings. None of us
Hmm.
are perfect, and of course we'll fall, we'll fail, we'll make mistakes. But you need someone in your life who's willing to forgo that, and who loves you despite that.
Hmm.
Who loves you, he loves my flaws. Yeah.
So Meghna, how difficult, ideally when we think,
Mm.
like when we hear people speak about divorce, we say, they come out of a divorce so broken, so shattered that they don't want to start their life anew again. They're very independent. They're very, what do I say,
Mm.
emboldened by the whole experience that they don't want to go back into another marriage. So how easy
Yeah.
was it for you? Because you just said you've been blessed with an amazing
Mm.
marriage now. You have beautiful two daughters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how easy was the transition for you? Because I think that's something a lot of
Mm.
ladies now want to hear the positive stories
Yeah.
after a messy marriage.
I would say the first thing you have to do is give yourself time to heal. And in that process, what healing means is, in that process, give yourself 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 6 months, whatever it takes for your healing process. Be very, very kind to yourself. No matter what anybody tells you, no matter if they say that you should be doing this or you should be feeling this emotion, you are the gatekeeper of your own life, your own emotion, and definitely your own happiness. So you
Mhm.
decide if you want to go if you want to quit your job and travel the world for a year, if you want to have multiple sexual conquests, if you want to write a book, no matter
Yeah.
what comes to you, you
Hmm.
embrace it, because
Yeah.
you have been humiliated, undermined for so long.
Hmm.
Whatever makes you feel good, you go and do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Because trust me, that's the only way to heal your soul, and be unapologetic about your healing process.
Yeah.
And don't let anybody shame you anymore. Don't let anybody humiliate you or judge you anymore. You
Hmm.
are your own person finally. So keep
Hmm.
telling yourself that. I'm saying this because it took me a lot of time, the healing, the judgment that comes your way, the
Yeah.
snide
The judgment, the
comments, the
snide comments.
looks. Yeah, you have to be stronger than that. And um, I wasn't ready. I'd stopped believing in love, obviously, completely. And even if it came my way, I would self sabotage. I was just not interested in the whole. I didn't believe in the concept anymore. But my husband Sahil Kanuga, I have to tell you that he literally broke down. He was very persistent.
Mhm.
From the
So
second he met
lovely.
me, he was like, very sure that he wanted to marry me, that we were meant to be together. And I think I tortured him in those 2 years that we were dating. Like, I was so indecisive. I was just like not committing to him. But he hung on. He broke down all my walls. He regained the trust I had in men, in relationships, in marriage. And
Mhm.
he made it happen. So hats off to him. So you'll meet the
Yeah.
right person,
Mhm.
and if you decide, and the thing is, it doesn't have to be, your redemption doesn't have to be romantic love again. It
Yeah.
can be the love of your career. It can be the love of a child. You can even adopt a
Mhm.
child if you want one
Yeah.
and don't have at that point. It can be the love of writing, or the love of traveling, or whatever comes, again, whatever
Yeah.
comes to you. It doesn't have to be the form of romantic love. So
Mhm.
keep that in mind, but some form of love, pour yourself into that. Even if it's something as simple as making, a vase from start. It can be anything. So
Something
just do
as
that for
basic.
yourself. As basic as that. It can be just, finishing a painting. It can be watching a nice show and laughing.
Yeah.
It can be going for a walk or looking at flowers and admiring butterflies. I mean, it can be something as small as that.
Mhm.
But seek it, and when it's coming your way, accept it.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
I thought I didn't deserve to be loved. That's why I was very suspicious of somebody who loved me, because I'm like, mujh mein hai kya? Like, why do I deserve to be loved again? Because I'm clearly a terrible person. And because they were not just him, but his parents would sit
Yeah.
down with me for hours and they'd email my parents, my
Oh my
family,
God.
saying, your daughter has done, aaj chamach nahi lai, aaj tamatar nahi lai, ye something dal jali hui hai. I mean, those were things for them that apparently defined my character, that the tomato was not there at home, which the guy could have easily also got, because I mean, we're living abroad, we're not living like in India, where you have help that can do all these things for you anyway. So despite being treated basically like a house help, a domestic servant, um I mean, these were the things, this is expectations versus reality. And
I had eventually bought into
yeah.
as well.
Sorry?
The
That I had bought into as well,
yeah.
because they were drilling it to me for over 5 years, and collectively doing it. So there's me, a little person by myself in my 20s, trying to stand up for myself, and there's four adults,
Yeah.
including two 60 plus old people,
Mhm.
telling me repeatedly that I'm not a good person. And at
Mhm.
some point, you're like, maybe I'm not a good person, and that's why
Yeah.
this is happening to me. That's why
Mhm.
the bad things are happening to me.
Mhm.
So yeah, the self confidence that you build back. But one thing I'll say, I'm very happy today, guys. I have been
Yeah.
for very long, touch wood. And you will smile one day again. You'll
Yeah.
find your, rainbow at the end of the tunnel.
Mhm.
Just give yourself those few years, few
To
months,
heal.
whatever you need to heal.
Yeah. So how does it feel now that it's out there, the closure is done, the story is out there?
Mm,
Do you worry that, it may come back to you because they're also reading the book, they're
mm.
watching you, they know what you're saying?
The only thing I would hope is that I hope they course correct. I hope they understand, this is
And
not
nobody else
a
has to
tale
go
of
through that
revenge.
anymore.
Yeah, I hope nobody else goes through that. I hope that even if the ex-husband finds a romantic partner in his life, I hope he treats her with respect. I
Mhm.
hope he course corrects. I hope his family recognizes that what abuse looks like and what it can do to someone,
Yeah.
no matter how
And
strong you thought
now probably at this point in
yeah,
time, understand your perspective and how you saw it at
yeah,
that point in time, right?
yeah, yeah. And that you can't treat women like this. I mean, just because
Nobody can.
you have two sons and you claim you don't have an understanding of women, does not give you the right to humiliate and dehumanize a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have done it, then own up, apologize, and course correct, because we don't need more hatred in the world. We need more
Oh, we
love.
have enough and more.
We have enough and more. So I hope that, they take away something positive from that. And if
Mhm.
they don't, well, this time if anybody comes to me with anything, I will teach them a lesson, and it'll be worse than the book, because no woman deserves to go through this. And no more of this.
Yeah.
Definitely not more of this. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, you just said.
I'm married to a lawyer now, so I can actually have the ex-husband put behind bars, just as
Yeah.
a
So
warning.
just watch it. So like you just said, no
Yeah,
woman should go through this,
yeah,
but you were saying before when you first published your article in Femina, even men were
yeah,
reaching out to you
yeah,
for
yeah,
having gone through domestic abuse. You know how
yeah,
ironic is that, in a patriarchal society that we're
yeah.
not society, we would say,
Mm,
patriarchal
mm,
world that we are, for men to be actually going through this and to own up to a woman that,
yeah,
this is happening to me. Man, that is
yeah,
something, right? It is, I like,
yeah, yeah.
I
But
found it,
even in the
heart
talks I've
wrenching.
done, even
Yeah.
in the talks I've done, you will not believe it, the men are clapping the loudest. And they're the ones speaking up the most, because they're saying, Meghna, we've never had a chance to express ourselves, to tell
Yeah.
anyone of what we're going through. Because if it's difficult for women to speak out about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
imagine men.
Men, yeah.
Men are told things like, "Tum mard nahi ho," a girl is hitting you, ha ha ha, how we
So
don't
also
believe
what we should
you.
understand is that we should break down is that abuse is not always necessarily physical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you were
Exactly.
saying, you went through this gaslighting, emotional, mental abuse,
Yeah.
which is
And
probably not,
financial. Yeah.
it is that topic, or the mental abuse or the emotional part of it is not probably brought out as much as it should be. I think there should be more
Yeah.
light on those topics as well, because obviously we
Absolutely.
don't see women going and hitting men left, right, and center for not doing their stuff right. But the men, probably the trauma
Yeah.
that they would be talking about is emotional, or mental
Yeah.
trauma, mental abuse.
Yeah. I've heard some small cases of physical also. Like a friend was telling me that his ex-girlfriend hit a hot kettle across his face in a fight. Then another one was telling me his
Spoke too soon.
ex-wife, yeah, his ex-wife threw some vase or something and a bottle towards his face, and he cut his cheeks. So,
Mm.
I mean, I'm talking about, see, again, these incidents are one-off, and they also don't lead to, it's not persistent. Like, it's not like
Mhm.
a pattern.
Yeah.
It happens during fights. And the what Thappad, the movie, brought to the forefront was very interesting, because, by the way, one of the questions I've been asked repeatedly, and I don't know, honestly, I don't know how to reply to it, is when women have been in marriages of 20, 25, 30 years, they come to me or they write to me saying, my husband hit me once during an argument. Does that constitute domestic violence or not? I've been with the guy for 20 years, 10 years, 30 years, whatever it is. We have children together, we have a life together. Should I leave him
Mhm.
because of that one incident? I don't know what to say, but for me, still in my head, like Thappad, I feel like if a guy has done it once, it's coming again.
There is a
Like,
tendency. Yeah.
it's not, we can't normalize this. We can't make excuses for this anymore,
How about if the
because
guy
if
is really apologetic? And see, in the movie Thappad, I think it's a
he
different
will
context
be,
because
yeah,
he was not
yeah,
at all. He didn't, if you look
yeah,
at it
yeah,
throughout the movie, he didn't even apologize once. But
yeah, yeah,
what is your take in a context like, I would say,
yeah,
I think I know your answer,
mm,
because your ex-husband was
yeah,
apologetic before the wedding
yeah,
itself, and you bought
yeah,
into it,
yeah.
right?
I bought into it. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
have to be very wary of how much you talk. I also had an
Yes.
ex-colleague of mine who, by the way, is from Dubai, who, after the article came out, sorry, I did a TEDx talk on this, and he wrote to me on Facebook, saying that I hit my girlfriend once, and I feel or twice, and I feel terrible about it, and I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I have been working on my temper, I've been working on
Mm-hmm.
myself, and I know I'll never hit a woman again.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know how to reply to him, because
Yeah, because he's a friend,
he's
you
a
know him.
he's a colleague I'm not a friend,
Colleague,
a
yeah.
colleague I worked with, and a very sweet, subdued guy. I would have never thought somebody like him was capable even of, like, such a polite, well-mannered guy,
But that's the facade, or
soft-spoken.
like,
And imagine,
yeah, all men have.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not like
yeah,
they
yeah,
may seem outwardly abusive, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And then
yeah.
what is your
You can't
advice?
tell. Yeah. I didn't reply because I didn't honestly know what to say, because I'm glad you're working on yourself, and I hope you become a better person. But I can't at the same time condone you hitting somebody and then confessing to it. I don't know if that is redemption. And I don't know if I'm the right person to, you should go to the person you abused and apologize, not to me.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure, honestly, how to correctly deal with it. So I didn't reply, but it
Yeah.
stayed with me. The story
I
stayed with
think
me.
it's a very thin line, to be able to understand
Yeah.
where the relationship is. It probably based on the
Yeah.
relationship. Obviously, not normalizing or generalizing any form of abuse, but I think it is for each couple to work on and understand how to deal
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Especially in this
Absolutely.
case,
Yeah.
like you were saying, when the men reach out to you, I was very surprised, and I was,
Yeah.
but it happens, and it is a reality.
But I wrote an article about 10 steps how to get out of domestic violence. And one of the steps was speak to your perpetrator. And it raised a lot of hackers because a lot of women were like, why should we speak to our perpetrator? So, that's what I'm saying. It's a very gray area, right? Like, I would
Hmm.
speak to my perpetrator because I'm in love with him, I'm invested in him. So, my first step would be to speak to my perpetrator and understand whether he's apologetic, whether he'll course correct or not. But I guess a lot of women are not in that position. But we
Hmm.
can't take away that option also at the same time from women who are able to do it, or
Hmm.
take away the emotions out of it. So
Yeah.
it's again very gray, and it really is very individual to your life situation.
Yeah. And which is why this topic is always very fascinating, because we want to know like how different people deal with it. People look for validation in
Yeah,
other people's stories, right? Which is why your story is
yeah,
so fascinating, and it's got the success that it has, and it's been taken up by Bollywood. So
yeah,
who do you see
yeah.
enacting your role?
So the cover, by the way, a lot of people told me it looks like Kiara Advani. I'd love to
Oh,
have her, but I think she's. A lot of
that'd be
people said
interesting
that.
because she's already played the abusive girlfriend as well.
She has.
Abused girlfriend,
She has.
rather.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And but I mean, we're considering a lot of people. Even Sanya Malhotra or Kriti
Ah,
Sanon. There's so many amazing, talented actresses. Alia Bhatt has done a similar thing. So obviously, I'd love for her to play Manika, but I guess not this time. Not for this particular story.
yeah,
But there's
because
so
she's
many
just
options.
out
The,
of a
the
similar
problem is
one.
going to be she's just out of a similar one. It'll be interesting casting the male lead actually, like somebody who's ready for a slightly villainous role. I
Yeah.
think it's a very interesting character to play.
I
That
really
would
like
be
the
very
character
interesting,
played
actually.
by played in Darlings. And he's got a
Yes,
very
yes.
like handsome face versus the wicked guy,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yes,
So it's
yes,
all
yes.
about, also a lot
Definitely.
of it about is about the movie would be about the characterization, how we can connect with the person, right?
Yeah,
It'll be
yeah.
interesting to see how
Absolutely.
it
And
turns
he
out.
acted very well. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And he acted very well.
very well. So do you get
Yeah.
a say in like who you want to act out, be your
Yeah,
protagonist?
yeah, we're working on the screenplay. In fact, we had a 3-hour meeting yesterday. We're working on the screenplay right now. Because, see, a novel is very different from a movie, right? It's very
Yeah.
visual, a movie. So, the means of writing a novel, the style that you use as a writer is very different when it comes to a screenplay. So,
Mm-hmm.
we have had to change a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
and take the basically the point of the movie is to take the book to the next level.
Yeah.
So we're working on
Fantastic.
whatever flaws the book had, whatever things that didn't quite work for the book are being removed from the movie. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really wonderful. I have a lovely team of writers at Pocket Aces. They're
Mm-hmm.
so passionate about the project. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so
Yeah.
smart, they're so driven, they're so passionate and so empathetic, so I'm
Yeah.
really excited about such and very, very intelligent. Like, EQ is high, IQ is high. So
Yeah.
I think they are going to do a phenomenal job with the writing. So I'm very excited about this
Also,
actually.
another book of yours has been touted to be made into a movie, right? That terrible,
Yes.
horrible, very bad good news. I mean, like, I love how all your
Yeah.
titles are so quirky and, sarcasm loaded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
So
how,
that was it's a comedy. So that's it's called Badnaam Laddu. The movie is going to be called Badnaam Laddu. That's been it's in process. Also, we're still working on the screenplay again. By the way, a lot of people don't know this, and I also didn't know this because I'm not from Bollywood. It takes very long to get the whole process together. It takes
yeah.
like years and years. And
Mhm.
when we see it on screen, it's so easy.
It's so
The amount
easy,
of
yeah.
hard work that goes in, my
Yeah.
God, the amount of blood, sweat, and tears. I have huge respect for Bollywood after this because I
Yeah.
had no idea it entails so much work.
Yeah. And then
So
when final
hats off to
product comes
them.
out and it tanks, it must be so hurtful.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking,
Yeah.
and you've got thousands of people involved. With the book, it's just me and the editor, and maybe the
The
cover
publisher.
designer and a couple of
Mhm.
other
Yeah.
editors and the publisher and the
Uh-huh.
distributor and maybe the retailer. But with films, there are like literally thousands of people involved. So you're breaking the hearts and minds of thousands of people, which is very sad. So, But I love Bollywood, and I think once we have good content, we'll be fine. I think content is uh, has been a little bit lacking in the movies, but I think it'll course correct again, and I think we'll get good content again, and then we'll be back on Bollywood shining.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need better stories for sure.
So, but how do you come up with these
Yeah.
titles? They're also quirky and catchy.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I don't know. They just come to me. So the one thing any writer will tell you, the first thing you have to get right is your title and your book cover.
Yeah.
Book cover, of course, is dependent if you get a good designer, but your title and your first page, your first paragraph, especially,
Hmm.
you have to nail it then. So I pay a
Yeah.
lot of attention to my titles. I
The hook
spend
line.
months deciding the title, the hook line.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, it has been a very intense topic and intense conversation, Meghna. Let's take it light. Let's go to my
Yeah.
quick takes. Let's
Sure,
see.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's make it light and fun.
Sure.
So, which is easier for you to pen, fiction or autobiography?
Fiction, because I can escape in it.
Yeah, it's escapist. And you're
Yeah.
living in a nice parallel world, an
Yeah.
imaginary world. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something you believe in that most people disagree with.
Um, I think feminism is about, equality for, it's not about women versus men, but women and men versus patriarchy. I think a system that has been unjust for
I
both.
like how you
And,
put that.
I've been proud feminist, but I don't agree with everything my feminist sisters say sometimes, because it's always assumed that men are default perpetrators in every situation, which I don't think
Hmm.
is true. I
Yeah.
think the truth is about the individual cases. It's not about, something you painted over that all men are, even for during Me Too or any other
Yeah.
big movement, you can't paint all men with the same brush. So
Hmm.
not all men is also something I believe in. So I've got a lot of flack for it. I've got trolled for it, because I see the situation as, what, for example, what happened with Aziz Ansari. I don't believe that he uh, should have been called out for Me Too, because I don't think what he did was deserved to be called a Me Too moment. So, but I got called out for that. So I think within feminism also, there are a lot of different ways of, different
Addressing it.
viewpoints.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I have grown up with amazing male role models, from my brother to my father to my husband. So I don't believe in, I think men can be amazing and women can also be evil. So,
Yeah.
it's all
You've seen
about
that.
who you are as a human being. Yeah, I've seen that. And it's all about who you are as a human
Hmm.
being.
Yeah. An advice you would give to your 20-year-old self.
Don't be so naive.
Yeah. Like you were just saying
Yeah.
when you were writing your autobiography, like
Yeah.
a lighter version of it, it was like writing letters to your younger
Yeah.
self.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely. That's the one thing. Don't be naive.
Yeah. Which is more preferable, being nice or being fair?
Being fair.
Yeah. I would
And I
understand
think,
now.
in fact,
You tried being your best,
yeah, I tried
for a
being
matter of
nice.
fact.
Being nice doesn't always work.
Yeah.
I think, but being fair means you're also being nice, but you also, sort of not losing yourself in the process. So I
Hmm.
think sometimes being nice means you're losing yourself.
When were you the most hard on yourself?
I think when I first got hit, and I just refused to believe myself, to listen to my own inner voice, my own alarm bells, my intuition, everything, every cell and atom in my body was telling me, don't do this to yourself. And
Hmm.
I still entered what I considered a sacred institution. And I think I should have listened. That's why I feel like, don't be so naive. I mean, I was in my
Hmm.
20s. We all make mistakes, especially when we're so young. But I still wish I'd listened. I
Yeah.
think I was very hard on myself.
Yeah. I think
So
in many ways, I think the energies manifested such that the body, your heart
yeah,
tells you what you should do. And, we
absolutely.
tend to like listen to the heart, but,
Yeah.
finally make the decision with the brain, right?
Yeah.
That's
I
what
think we
we
should
do.
stop drowning out our inner voice. Now
Yeah.
I act a lot on instinct. If somebody's giving me strange vibes or a situation is not seeming right, I just step away from it. I don't enter it anymore. So it's
Yeah.
been a very long but good learning curve.
Hmm. One quality about you that you wish to give up.
Uh, I wish I had more patience. I'm a very, very impatient person. I want everything done yesterday. So I'm learning, especially after having children. I think the one lesson, my husband is a very patient man, and although I keep teasing him about it, I'm actually secretly very impressed. Um, and I think children teach you patience.
Yeah.
Bollywood teaches you patience.
You inadvertently learn to be patient with kids.
But
There's
I've
no
always
option.
believed that, yeah, I think I always believe that we were sent down in this life to work on ourselves, to become
Mhm.
better, evolved souls. And I think there's certain characteristics we all come with which are fundamental flaws, and we should work on it in this lifetime. So,
Mhm.
my lack of patience is something I'm working on. Um, and it's not easy, but I'm working on it so that I enjoy life. I savor
Mhm.
moments much more now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what, like in a hurry to get through with life, you forget to enjoy what you
Yeah,
have in the moment.
exactly,
Yeah, and then you
exactly.
go
So
ahead and
this is
think, oh,
the
I should have actually, enjoyed it a little more yesterday. What is happiness for you?
exactly, yeah. Uh, looking at myself and just very content. I think sleeping very well. And I mean, I was going to say the smiles of my children, but that's a very cliche answer. But honestly, it's the smiles of my children. Like every morning, I wake up with hugs and cuddles and smiles, and I'm like, this is literally true happiness. It does
Alhamdulillah.
not get better than
And
that.
I think you're able
Yeah,
to enjoy it more because of all that you've been through,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I've happiness was literally stripped away from under my feet, and I had to fight so hard to regain every slice of happiness. So now
Yeah,
when I have it, I embrace it, I enjoy it, I
yeah.
refuse to apologize for being happy. A lot
Mm.
of people call me the smiling author because authors are,
Wow.
very supposed to be very serious, very profound, and uh, sort of pedantic. And I'm like, no, I've earned the right to be happy, and I'm going to own it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
apologize for
If
it.
anyone, then you
Yeah.
have absolutely earned the right to be happy. So, see, this is one question you ask all your guests, and I want to ask you
Yeah.
today. How different do you think your life would have been if you were a man?
It would have been much, much easier, I think. A lot of things would have, for example, like in publishing also, the male writers get higher advances. Now it's changed, of course, a little bit, but they get bigger marketing budgets. They get all the awards. Now, of course, in the last two,
All the
3 years,
awards as
things have
well?
changed. Yeah, earlier, like
Earlier.
if you go
Mhm.
through earlier, yeah, especially, I think the last couple of years, things have changed. But before that, all the big awards, like two-thirds of the winners were always men, even more than that sometimes, for all the major
But do you
national
think
literary
it could have
awards,
been
even the
because there
Booker
weren't enough
Award.
women contending?
No, there've always been
No.
enough female writers. It's just that anything that women write is immediately categorized into the domestic sphere, that women are not capable of writing anything that is serious, like about war, about crime, but
Mm.
only
Okay.
within the
True.
domestic realm. And that's what Naipaul had also said. So I think women's writing was undermined for many, many years, despite, Rowling and all of that. So I think we've come a long way from that, fortunately.
Okay. So that's what you think would
Yeah.
have been different. You would have been more, you know,
Yeah. When I started
focused.
writing, before One and a Half Wife was published, I was told by someone, advised by someone, that you should publish under the pseudonym MD Pant, not Meghna Pant. Deep is my middle name, so actually it's correct. I am MD Pant, because then you'll sound androgynous. So people will think you're a male writer because you don't have,
Oh,
at that time I didn't have my picture behind the book cover, and they said you'll sell more copies, because if somebody assumes you're a male writer, they will buy your book. They're more likely to pick up your book and buy it. So
oh,
women
that's
have been
interesting. I wouldn't have
undermined.
thought so, to be honest. I love reading. I
Yeah,
love talking about books, but then I don't
yeah,
know. Maybe I haven't ever thought like that, but that's interesting to know there's a
yeah.
perspective like that out there.
I was shocked actually, but it was very interesting. Yeah, and I stuck to my guns. Me being me, has to defy the stereotypes. I said, now I'll definitely publish under Meghna Pant only.
Yeah. So you had
Yeah,
enough things you were covering up. The name is the last thing you want to do at that point in time when
yeah,
one and one half wife was happening.
exactly, exactly.
Thank you so much for your time
Yeah.
today, Meghna. It was a
Thank you,
pleasure talking to
Tauhida.
you. And it's still, there's so much hurt in my heart to know that there is so much grief in many marriages out there. And people like
Yeah.
you should be able to come out and speak your story, vocalize it, so that there is definitely more awareness and normalizing divorces and helping people come out of broken marriages and homes. Thank you so much for being the
Thank
superwoman that you are.
you. Thank you so much, Tauhida, for having me. This was a lovely chat.
Thank you so
And I
much.
wish you all the best.
Thank
Thank
you so much,
you.
Meghna, and all the best to you too.